Welcome everyone to the artist talk here in Zwischenraum at MARKK. The artist talk is with Amina Zoubir, with Jana Reimer and with Stephan Köhler. It is about your research presentation here at the MARKK. I want to shortly introduce everyone, and then we can start the talk. Jana Reimer, to my right, Jana Reimer, she's the curator of the Department for North America, West and Central Asia at MARKK.
North Africa.
North Africa, yes. And she curated the research work from Amina Zoubir. Then we have Stephan Köhler from Kulturforum SÜD-NORD, who made it possible for Amina to actually be here and work. And Amina Zoubir, finally the artist, filmmaker and visual artist who presents her research work here at MARKK and worked with the photo collection of MARKK and worked very closely together on that with Katharina Winzer, who is the head of the photo archive here at MARKK. Yes, so maybe I can first ask Stephan, because Amina is here with a residential program, and please maybe you can, before we hear more about Amina's work represented here at MARKK, we can hear how it was even possible that she could work.
Well, the goal of our new artist residency series is to reverse the roles of the explorer and the explored. We invite artists from the global south to engage with Hamburg's colonial past and make even now existing prejudices visible in their works for an open discussion. We launched last summer Reversed Exploration with Eliane Aiso, artist from Benin. She was introduced by historian Hanni-Mari Jokinen to traces of colonial times in Hamburg public spaces. She transformed the photos of these locations to bring out the trauma the victims of European expansion suffered. We printed them in edition 20,000 and inserted them into daily newspapers to reach an audience that normally does not go to museums. I met Amina Zoubir at the conference African Artists in Venice in May 2019. I admired her courage to carry through with the Algerian pavilion that was cancelled 2 weeks before the official openings due to the political instability in the country. Actually, I permitted myself to print out this beautiful poster that she handed out in Venice, her performance to point out that the pavilion needs to exist, needs to continue. And given that the Biennale is now closed and postponed, I think it was a very good choice. You did it. I mean, at that time, your father was the curator. I saw the exhibition in the pavilion. It was brilliant. And now you couldn't have done it for years. So I admired your courage, and we stayed in touch. And you really managed to make the Algerian pavilion visible in Venice.
Thank you, Stephan.
Yeah. In the months to follow, Amina kept sending me information about her current work and research, including collages she made with photos from the archive of the Ethnographical Museum in Stockholm. Intrigued by her work, I had the idea to contact Barbara Plankensteiner, the director of MARKK, and ask if she would be interested to cooperate and give access to the MARKK's photo archives to Amina Zoubir. Once we received her positive response, we invited Amina to our residence reverse exploration in Hamburg, for a duration of roughly 2 months. Ms. Plankensteiner kindly connected us with Katharina Winzer, head of the collection of photography, Gabriel Schemeroth and Skadi Sarnoch, curator of the Zwischenraum space where we are sitting right now. We truly thank the MARKK team, in particular Katharina Winzer, for letting Amina Zoubir select photos from their archive, copies of which she used in her collage series Archaeology of the Colonized Body. When hearing from the curators and Katharina Windsor about the questions MARKK asks itself on how, if and how to show photos taken by so-called explorers and ethnologists, I suggested to the MARKK team to write a text for our poster about the problem and how to deal with this photo collection now. Here I would like to thank especially Jana Reimer for her precise text about Amina Zoubir's work with the photographs of the collection and how it contributes her research to the question and discussion on how to deal with the collection. Very beautiful text, very short and precise. And I would like to thank our partner organization Embassy, especially Björn Lux, Hamburg, and Marlene Linke for providing studio space to Amina Zoubir and supporting her stay in many ways. Last but not least, we would like to thank our sponsors, the Ministry of Culture and Media Hamburg, Behörde für Kultur und Medien, and the Liebelt Stiftung for their support. And above all, Amina Zoubir for accepting our invitation.
Thank you, Stephan. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephan. Especially thank you again for making this possible. We had some very inspiring weeks since March, since we started working on the collection. So I will just add a few words about the photographic collections in questions. I asked my colleague Kati Windsor about it specifically. The archive holds about 850 images from the Maghreb and 1,000 from Egypt, because by now you also broadened the scope regional-wise, the pictures you were looking at. And I think by now you know much of the collection more profoundly probably than others do here. Part of these images are portraits. And since most of them were taken in a colonial context, and therefore so certain colonial power structures and imbalances, we have to treat many of these pictures very carefully today, because the images transported have to be considered very thoroughly by looking at them. Of course, we store and preserve them as historical sources, but by reproducing them or reprinting them, showing them in a presentation or an exhibition, whatever, we always have to be careful about not reproducing or renewing the images that were transported or might have been transported and that might still be set within our mindsets or of others. The problem I see with pictures is that looking at them, you get a direct response from your brain because it's just whooshing through and the reflection sets in later. So not only with the pictures, but with other objects as well, we are interested nowadays to get different perspectives on the objects in questions. And at that point, and there's a great strength in your work there, it's very interesting to look at the approach Amina Zoubir has with these pictures, by deconstructing them, refocusing, taking them out of their historical context, kind of transforming from the objectification, especially of women, appropriation of their bodies, and also in this specific regional context, and making them subjects. There still is a lot of nudity in those pictures that I know is irritating to people looking at them, but you have to look differently at those pictures. And that's why they are really also very interesting input into our own collection. We are very happy and honored and grateful that we can keep some of your work here. But I won't say more on that, because you are very precise on the position you have on your work. And so it will be more fruitful if you tell us about it.
Exactly. So, Stephan Köhler, I would like to thank you for the invitation in Hamburg to come for the residency reverse exploration, because for me it's quite challenging and a very interesting and an important also experience for my career, and for having this experience at the MARKK Museum. I would like to also thank Skadi, Jana, and also Katarina, who provided access to the photographic collection for the MARKK Museum. And it is also important to thank Barbara, the director, who make also this possible. And I would like to also thank Bjorn Lux and Marlene Christine Link for the welcoming of the residency at Embassy. And all these were also possible with all these partners. So I wanted to start to thank all of you because it is important to always start like this. And then to start to speak about my statement as an artist regarding the images, because I started, of course, this research in the Etnografiska Museet in Stockholm, in Sweden, and this was really important for me to find different images about the woman or the body representation in photography during colonial period, because I started my career doing performances as a woman artist. I have been facing many gender issues in the Algerian society. I am French and also Algerian artist. I born in Algeria, and my experience as a woman and also as an artist was about how do we challenge the gaze of the other. And this notion of body, society, and otherness are really present in my body of work as an artist. So in the first step was to question the contemporary society, and this contemporary society make me thinking about connecting this present to the past. So what was happening in the past during the colonial period interests me in my work, and this was also a long process of a PhD research that I have started also with the University of Paris 8. So it was for me really challenging to to go forward these images, and also to have access to archive of a museum is not easy. It is many steps. There is like a step for a residency, a step for a research, a step for production and practicing regarding this. There is also many steps in terms of coordination. And my statement as an artist, it was, of course, to look and to explore and to do this reversed exploration in the archive documents. As a document, I mean photography, image, drawing, text. All this information are important for my statement, because I could use this information for my own statement. And my position as an artist toward the archive was not to destroy it, because I think as an archive is important to be kept in a museum. An archive is also important to be kept through the timeline of the history. But my position as an artist nowadays in a contemporary society, not just the contemporary society of Algeria, is to question the male gaze of the photographers towards the body in general. Of course, the first step of my work was about questioning the body, the representation of woman body through photography during the colonial period. The first step was about the gender issue, the male gaze, but the second step was about how do we conceive the body of the colonized people? How do we conceive the body during the colonial period? How do we show it? How do we put it in scene? And of course, I've been really impressed about the massive images, photographs, and documents that I found during my reversed exploration, because it's like going to conquer this territory which is hidden in the boxes, because the archive are of course we need like different steps for permission and access the boxes and access the different rooms, etc. So it's always a long process of time. But my position as a contemporary artist was about what I'm going to do with all this material after collecting all these images, photography, etc. So of course I started a way of classification of this material, not in the same way as it was classified in the boxes through, like, for example, different time or different posture, etc. So my interest as a contemporary artist is how do I can link the past with the present. How can we today question the male gaze, or just have some response about the gender issue in our societies, not just the Algerian society because I'm Algerian, but how can we question the male gaze? Of course, the woman conditions are different from a country to another country. We do have different social codification. We do have different political and political codification that applied in or on the body of a man or a woman. How do we interact in society, of course, is different from a country to another country. And I wanted to focus on the colonial period because, of course, the body representation was not the same like nowadays. It was obvious that during the colonial period, we had like a different domination relationship and also humiliation, and it was about the way that a lot of people were depossessed by other people. The possession of the lands is the colonial fact. And of course, the body is something that was in between, and all these happened that when you explain the past, you can no longer carry it in the future, or if we are together here is also a way to talk about our future together and how in this present time we can question the past to make sure that we can go and move forward. So my position as a contemporary artist was to collect these material from the archive and to use it in my practice. So the practice was about deconstructing, was about creating fragmented, and was about this image as a mirror. My commitment and my position as an artist was to break this image, was to break this mirror, because we can no longer see each other in these images. As an Algerian artist or as people from Europe, we can no longer see these images as mirrors because it was in the past. So my position was to break this mirror. And also because I cannot, of course, break the archive itself, because I think it's important to be used by another artist. I'm not the kind of artist who wants to have like the monopoly or just to monopolize the possession of these material towards the history. Is also important for me to show that I can have another position, and this position, this statement as an artist is to break that mirror that we saw each other in the past. So my aesthetic, I can say, is an aesthetic of deconstruction. As Gilles Deleuze, this French philosopher, said, I mean, not just Gilles Deleuze, but I can mention Jacques Derrida. I mean, this concept of deconstructing make the things possible. Of course, when you deconstruct, it creates chaos, but in chaos there is also an order. And when you create also another order from the chaos, you can create a new thing happening. Yeah. And just because I mentioned Gilles Deleuze, I mean, both of them are philosophers, and I have like a typical, link with Jacques Derrida because he was born in Algeria, in Oran, and he wrote real statement and really massive statement about the theory of deconstruction. And it's really important for me to deconstruct who I am, to deconstruct my gaze, to deconstruct also the male gaze through these images, to find also solution in contemporary ways. And an artist can always propose images, propose a new aesthetics, propose like a perception perception, which of course is different from your perception or from your perception, but at least we can create a dialogue, we can create a platform that we can all be together to make sure that we are no longer carrying this past, which was the colonial past, which was very difficult for the colonized people, for the Algerian people, for the Congolese people, for South African. I mean, this relation.
Basically with your work?
Exactly. So okay. I can say that the presentation of the research here and the presentation also of my artworks is related to this research on the archive, but it's also a proposal for a broken image. I mean, this notion of an image as a mirror, as a broken mirror, it's not for me as a negative position, but it's also a way to say that we create another aesthetic. And just to come back to Gilles Deleuze, because I want to finish with him, it's really important in his theory of representation. It's about representation, because these images, I reproduce them. I do another representation.
Can you give an example? Maybe,
yeah,
maybe
the representation,
so that we have also an image in our head.
Yes,
while you talk about that.
About this notion of representation and difference. I create through the representation a different image. I take this image, I cut it in different fragments. I assemble, for example, an image of a North African woman with a Sub-Saharan woman. I also assemble an image of a woman with an image of a North African woman with an image with a man. I assemble also an image of a man from North Africa with a woman in South Africa. South Africa. But just to talk about the geography because of course in terms of time, I use the colonial period for my research. But the question of geography was to in the beginning talk about North Africa for Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria, Libya, Sudan, and also I had the access to some countries in Congo, in Namibia, Kenya, South Africa. So I was really impressed about the numbers of also in Egypt, in old Egypt. I was really impressed about the quantity of photography produced in the villages, produced also for an ethnographic and ethnologic purposes. And also what was I really interested in was the images of these women in studio, showing like North African women with bare breast, or showing Sub-Saharan women in the villages with bare breast. And of course the difference between both of them, the contexts are not the same, because in North Africa, most of the countries are Muslim. So when you see a woman with a kaftan with a bare breast, you see that it is not normal situation. And of course, I found like different images with the scarification of women in some villages. So this was really useful to make clarification, and through these narratives, create a position, because it's not my role to tell stories. My role is to create images, to create a proposal of a new aesthetics. And I finish here.
I agreed to the point of regarding photographs. I think it's rather a question of accessibility and distribution of the pictures and the content. But as I said before, I mean, the museum, since it's our core work, of course, we keep the documents as historical documents. And what we have to think about is how we work with in that case, with certain images. And the accessibility there also has to be restricted. And yes, we had to find out who are the people pictured in the pictures, and especially from what we are used to look at, how we are used to treat pictures that are taken nowadays. It's always back to the person. The right is with the person pictured. So that would be the person to actually. We had to ask what to do with these images, because the scope or the development, distribution of pictures and nobody could have thought about that at that moment. I mean, yeah, it would be historical work, profound work. Yeah. But I'm totally with you at that point.
I will be glad
It's completely different with the other objects, but with photographs, it's a bit. If they were taken locally by a photographer, and then would have been. I mean, then it would have had to look at how the collection of photographs came into the museum. But that's usually not the point. Usually, it's photographers who took the image of somebody and took that home. So there's a slight difference between the photograph itself as an object and the image taken.
I think we are trying to talk about the intention of who took the image. And the intention of who took the image is, of course, the question of my research, because as I said, there is like photographs for eroticism and photographs for anthropology purpose. And my position as an artist was to give the possibility to this body to exist as a subject, this colonized body, to exist like a human being, not just like a photography. And of course, it's a process. It's an artistic process, and I am happy to have this research at the MARKK museum and to show it at the Zwischenraum, if I pronounce it very well, and to welcome people to have a look on my research and my practice during this reversed exploration with the help of Stephan Köhler, with the help also of Katharina Windsor, that really provided access to the photographic collection, and with the help of Jana, that curated the research and the practice.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes.
And
I actually also just want to say that I would even question the purpose also of why the photographs were taken, but maybe that is also like another question, or also a question we have to keep in mind. But I wanted to say also that it is so great, and that I am actually very happy that you could work with a historical collection and produce a different view, a new view on those photographs, and that actually also we as the museum now have a small collection of your work, and maybe continue in the archive, or to show or archive even your works here as well, to show a continuation, not a continuation, but a change also, for the future generation. On those photographs. Yes. So thank you so much, Amina Zoubir. It was fantastic, and thank you so much really for the work with the photographs. It is really great to see that, and hopefully many other people can also see your research presentation there. It is fantastic that we can show it. Maybe the museums will open, we hope for that, and if not, maybe we might find a way to show one or two pictures or collages that you made. Thank you so much.